The moon hung low over the garden, spilling silver light across the dewy grass. The air was heavy with the scent of jasmine, mingling with the subtle perfume of roses in full bloom. It was the kind of night that made secrets feel alive, whispering to anyone daring enough to listen. Isabella stepped softly over the cobblestone path, her bare feet brushing against the cold stones. The garden was deserted, save for the rustle of leaves in the gentle night breeze. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from anticipation. She had been waiting for this night, for him, for the thrill that always seemed to linger in the spaces between them. And there he was, leaning casually against the wrought iron gate at the far end, shadows playing across his chiseled features. Adrian's dark eyes caught hers immediately, and a slow, knowing smile spread across his face. He stepped forward, the sound of his boots muffled by the grass, yet somehow echoing in Isabella's chest. Finally, he murmured, his voice low and warm, like honey dripping over ice. "I was beginning to think you'd chicken out." Isabella's lips curved into a teasing smile. "And miss this," she whispered, letting her gaze drift over him. She could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to taste. The night seemed to contract around them, the world shrinking until it was only the two of them, hidden beneath the garden's lush canopy. Adrian closed the distance between them, his presence commanding and yet intoxicatingly gentle. He reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered longer than necessary, tracing the line of her jaw, sending a shiver down her spine. "You look dangerous tonight," he said, his eyes darkening with desire. "But I like it." Isabella laughed softly, the sound a mixture of amusement and seduction. "Dangerous? Maybe. But only for you." She stepped closer, letting the warmth of their bodies mingle, the night air suddenly charged with electricity. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the small fountain in the center of the garden. Moonlight danced across the water, illuminating the curve of her neck, the soft slope of her shoulders. Every movement felt deliberate, like a slow, tantalizing dance where neither dared to break the rhythm. "Tell me something," Adrian said, his lips brushing against the shell of her ear. "Tell me you've thought about this, about us, as much as I have." Isabella's breath hitched. The words had been on her lips all week, but saying them aloud made her pulse race. "Every night," she admitted, her voice barely audible, trembling with longing. He smiled, a predator and a lover rolled into one. "Good. Because I've imagined this moment, over and over. And now," he pressed closer, letting the heat of his body melt against hers. "Now it's real." The first kiss was tentative, testing, tasting, like fire sparking in dry leaves. Then, with a mutual urgency, it deepened, becoming a storm that neither could contain. Her hands roamed over his chest, feeling the hard planes of muscle beneath her fingertips, while he cradled her back, drawing her impossibly closer. The fountain bubbled beside them, its gentle gurgle drowned out by the sound of their racing hearts and the soft, desperate whispers they shared. The garden, once serene and innocent, now seemed alive with every brush of skin, every sigh carried into the night. When they finally broke apart, both gasping for air, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "This is just the beginning," he murmured. "Nights like this, they don't end." Isabella shivered, a delicious tremor running through her. "Then let's make sure we have many more," she whispered back. And with the garden surrounding them like a secret world of their own, the night stretched ahead, full of possibilities, full of temptation, full of passion yet to come. The moon had climbed higher by the time they moved deeper into the garden, winding through arched trellises heavy with ivy and fragrant blooms. Every step they took seemed choreographed by desire itself, a silent rhythm that pulled them together, even as they teased the distance between them. Isabella's pulse thrummed in her ears, a wild, insistent beat that matched the flutter of Adrian's movements beside her. He reached for her hand again, fingers interlacing with hers. This time, there was no hesitation, no tentative testing. It was an unspoken promise, an acknowledgement that neither would resist what was inevitable. Their fingers danced together as they wandered into a secluded alcove, a hidden corner where the roses bloomed thickest and the scent was almost overpowering. Adrian turned to her, the shadows playing across his face, highlighting the intensity in his eyes. "I could get lost in you," he murmured, brushing his thumb over the back of her hand, the lightest of touches that made her shiver. "In every curve, every sigh, every look you give me," Isabella's lips curved into a slow, sultry smile. "And I could get lost in you," she whispered, leaning closer, letting the warmth of her breath brush against his jaw. "Every glance, every word, every touch. I already am." He closed the gap between them, lips pressing to hers with a hunger that left no room for doubt. The kiss was slow at first, teasing, exploratory, but the tension that had built all week, every stolen glance, every shared laugh, every subtle brush of their bodies exploded into a fierce, consuming passion. Her hand slid up the back of his neck, tangling in the dark hair that smelled faintly of sandalwood and smoke. His hands, large and commanding, cupped her face, then traced the line of her back, down to the small of her waist, holding her as if he would never let go. Every brush of skin against skin sent shivers racing through her body, igniting a fire she could no longer contain. "Isabella," he murmured against her lips, voice rough with need. "You're perfect." She gasped, not from the compliment but from the intensity of his touch, the way his eyes held hers, burning with a desire that mirrored her own. She pressed closer, letting her body mold to his, feeling the heat of him seeping into her, every nerve ending alive, every thought consumed by the moment. They moved together slowly, as if the world outside the garden had ceased to exist. Leaves brushed against them, petals falling like whispered confessions, while the distant hum of the city faded into irrelevance. In the hush of the night, they found each other completely, a magnetic pull neither could resist. Adrian's lips trailed down her neck, brushing her collarbone, eliciting a soft moan that made him pause, a dark grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You sound incredible," he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. "I want to hear more." Isabella laughed breathlessly, a sound full of heat and mischief. "Then stay close," she murmured, running her hands down his chest, over the firm lines that made her ache. "I'm not done yet." He didn't need further invitation. Their bodies pressed together, every touch a wordless conversation of longing and lust. The night wrapped around them like a silken shroud, cocooning them in shadows and the intoxicating scent of flowers. Each kiss, each whisper, each brush of skin was a promise of what was still to come, a silent declaration that the garden held secrets meant only for them. When they finally broke apart, gasping, foreheads resting together, the air was thick with heat and anticipation. Adrian's hand slid down hers, intertwining fingers once more. "We shouldn't stop," he breathed. "Not yet. Not ever." Isabella smiled, the fire in her eyes mirroring his. "Then let's not," she whispered, pressing her lips to his again, surrendering to the pull that had brought them here, knowing that the garden night was just the beginning of a passion neither of them wanted to end. And as the moonlight bathed them in silver, the garden seemed to pulse with their desire, every shadow, every petal, every leaf bearing witness to a night that promised more, much more. The garden seemed to hold its breath, the night air thick with anticipation as Isabella and Adrian wandered further into its hidden depths. Lanterns hung from low-hanging branches, casting a golden glow that flickered across petals and leaves, painting their skin in warmth and shadow. Every step felt electric, as though the ground itself was charged with the energy of what they were about to share. Adrian's hand never left hers. His fingers curled around hers, drawing her closer, a constant reminder of the connection that had sparked in the fountain alcove. He paused beneath a willow tree whose drooping branches created a natural curtain, a private world where the outside could not reach them. Isabella's breath hitched, the intimacy of the secluded space making her pulse race faster. "Do you feel it?" he murmured, his lips grazing the shell of her ear. "The way the night hums for us." She shivered, tilting her head toward him. "I do," she whispered, her voice thick with longing. "It's like the garden itself is alive, waiting for us." Adrian smiled, a slow, dark grin that sent a thrill through her. He stepped closer, his body pressing against hers just enough to ignite a fire that neither could ignore. The touch was electric, teasing, and yet full of promise. His hands traced the curve of her waist, the soft slope of her hips, holding her close without restraint. Isabella's fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him down for a deep, hungry kiss. This one was different from the earlier kisses. It was urgent, demanding, filled with the accumulated tension of every glance, every brush of skin, every whispered word since they had first met. Her lips parted under his, inviting him deeper, matching his need with her own. "God, Isabella," he murmured against her mouth, voice husky, "I've wanted this, wanted you, for so long." Her pulse quickened, and a soft moan escaped her lips. "Then don't stop," she breathed, pressing herself closer, feeling the heat of him seeping into every inch of her. "I don't want this to end." The willow's branches swayed above them, brushing their shoulders and backs as though the garden itself approved, enveloping them in a cocoon of privacy. Adrian's hands roamed freely now, memorizing her curves, teasing the sensitive skin along her neck and shoulders, eliciting soft gasps that made him smile against her lips. Isabella arched into him, giving herself over completely to the sensations, the warmth, the intensity, the delicious ache of need that had been building for days. Each brush of his fingers sent shivers down her spine, each whispered word against her ear fanning the fire that blazed between them. "Every part of you," he whispered, lips trailing along her jaw, "every inch, it's perfect." Her breath hitched, a mix of pleasure and desire, and she pressed her hands to his chest, feeling the firm muscles under her palms. "Then show me," she murmured, voice low and sultry. "Show me how much you want me." Adrian's response was immediate. He captured her lips again, deeper, more urgent, as if the night itself demanded they surrender fully. His hands moved with deliberate intent, memorizing her, claiming her in the way lovers do when words are no longer enough. The air between them was thick with heat, their bodies moving in a silent rhythm that left them both breathless, hearts pounding in sync. Isabella's head fell back against the willow trunk, eyes half closed, lost in the delicious haze of his touch. The world outside the garden ceased to exist, reduced to the sensation of skin on skin, the taste of lips, the warmth of a body that fit perfectly against hers. Every kiss, every sigh, every whispered name was a promise, a vow that this night in the garden would linger in memory far beyond its fleeting hours. When they finally paused, foreheads resting together, both panting softly, the garden seemed to exhale around them. Adrian's hand brushed a wet strand of hair from her face, fingers lingering against her cheek. "I could stay here forever," he murmured. "With you." Just like this. Isabella smiled, a slow, knowing curve of her lips. Then maybe we should, she whispered, leaning into him once more. Because nights like this, they don't come often. And when they do, we have to live them fully. And so, beneath the willow's protective branches, in the heart of the moonlit garden, they gave themselves to each other once more, surrendering to desire, to the night, and to the intoxicating promise of all the nights yet to come. The night had grown darker, yet the garden shimmered with life, illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns and the silver sheen of moonlight. Isabella and Adrian moved slowly, almost reluctantly, through the winding paths, the air around them thick with tension and longing. Every glance, every brush of fingertips against skin, carried a promise of what was yet to come, a promise neither of them wanted to break. Adrian stopped beside a stone bench hidden beneath a cascade of wisteria, its violet blooms swaying gently in the night breeze. He turned to her, his dark eyes reflecting the moonlight, intensity radiating from every line of his body. "Isabella," he murmured, voice low and rough with desire, "you have no idea what you do to me." Isabella smiled, the slow curl of her lips both playful and knowing. "I think I do," she whispered, stepping closer, letting the warmth of her body brush against his. "But I want to see just how far you'll go." He captured her lips again, this kiss deeper, more urgent, as if all the restraint of the evening had been shed. Their bodies pressed together, the heat between them building, a silent symphony of desire and need. Every touch, every whisper, every sigh sent shivers racing through them, igniting a fire that seemed impossible to contain. Isabella's hands roamed over his chest, feeling the hard planes of muscle beneath her fingertips, memorizing every contour. Adrian's hands mirrored hers, tracing the curve of her back, the swell of her hips, drawing her impossibly close. Their bodies moved together in perfect harmony, a rhythm born of longing, trust, and the shared need that had been simmering all night. "Adrian," she murmured, her voice trembling with anticipation. "Don't stop." He smiled against her lips, a dark, teasing grin that made her pulse quicken. "I have no intention of stopping," he whispered, his hands tightening slightly around her, holding her as if letting go would shatter them both. "Not now. Not ever." The wisteria above them swayed, petals brushing against their shoulders as if the garden itself was bearing witness to their passion. Isabella pressed closer, feeling the heat of him, the steady beat of his heart against hers, and the intoxicating scent of his skin. Every movement, every sigh, every whispered name was a thread binding them together, pulling them deeper into a world where nothing else existed but the two of them. Adrian's lips trailed down her neck, brushing over the sensitive skin that made her gasp. His hands moved with deliberate intent, memorizing her every curve, exploring every inch of her with reverent hunger. Isabella arched into him, surrendering completely, her body responding to his touch in ways that left her dizzy with need. "You're incredible," he murmured, voice husky, lips grazing her collarbone. "I could lose myself in you, in every inch of you." Her breath caught, a soft moan escaping her lips. "Then don't resist," she whispered, tilting her head back, offering herself to him, letting the night carry them into a space where only desire existed. "Let me feel everything you want me to feel." Adrian's hands tightened slightly around her waist, pulling her impossibly closer, as if he could fuse their bodies into one. The kiss deepened, a slow, deliberate dance of lips and tongues, building with a heat that left them both gasping. Every touch, every movement, every sigh was a declaration, a wordless confession of the passion they could no longer deny. They paused briefly, foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling, hearts pounding in perfect unison. The garden around them seemed to pulse with their desire, petals and leaves shimmering in the soft lantern light, as if celebrating the intensity of their connection. Isabella's fingers traced the line of his jaw, lingering on the sensitive curve of his neck. "This night, it feels endless," she whispered, voice thick with longing. "I don't want it to end." Adrian's lips curved into a slow, dark smile, his eyes alight with desire. "Then we won't let it," he murmured, capturing her lips once more. "Not tonight. Not ever." And beneath the wisteria, with the moon casting silver streaks across their entwined bodies, they surrendered fully to the night, to the garden, and to each other, knowing that the hours ahead would be filled with more heat, more passion, and the intoxicating promise of nights yet to come. The garden had transformed into a sanctuary of shadows and scent, every path and hidden nook alive with the night's energy. Lanterns flickered faintly, casting a soft golden glow across petals heavy with dew, while the moon bathed the couple in silver light. Isabella and Adrian moved together as though drawn by some magnetic force, every glance and touch sparking a fire that refused to be contained. Adrian paused near a small stone fountain, its water rippling softly in the quiet night. He turned to Isabella, eyes dark and smoldering, lips slightly parted in a way that made her chest ache. "Do you know how dangerous you are?" he murmured, his voice low and husky, carrying a weight of desire that made her shiver. She laughed softly, the sound rich and sultry, brushing against the cool night air. "Dangerous," she teased, stepping closer so that their bodies brushed. "I think you're the dangerous one, Adrian. You have no idea how much control you've over me." His hand reached for hers, intertwining fingers, the contact sending sparks racing up her arm. "Control," he whispered, leaning closer, lips hovering near hers. "I'm not interested in control. I'm interested in surrender." Isabella's breath hitched. "Surrender," she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy with promise. She tilted her head, letting her lips brush his in a soft, teasing kiss. "I can surrender, if you make it worth it." The tension between them surged, electric and overwhelming. Adrian responded immediately, capturing her lips in a kiss that was urgent and commanding. His hands roamed her back, pulling her impossibly close, memorizing every curve, every contour. Isabella responded in kind, pressing against him, letting her desire echo his, a dance of heat and longing that seemed to stretch time itself. The fountain beside them gurgled softly, but its sound was drowned out by their quickening breaths and whispered moans. Isabella's hands tangled in Adrian's hair, pulling him closer, letting him feel the full force of her need. His hands roamed her waist and hips, pressing her firmly against him, drawing out a gasp that echoed in the secluded garden. "You're breathtaking," he murmured against her lips, voice thick with longing. "Every inch of you, every glance, every touch, it drives me insane." Her pulse raced, heat pooling low in her belly. "Then don't stop," she breathed, pressing herself closer. "I need you, need to feel you, everywhere." Adrian's lips trailed down her neck, brushing over her sensitive skin with deliberate intent, eliciting soft, involuntary sounds of pleasure. Her hands explored his chest, the feel of muscle beneath her fingertips grounding her, even as waves of desire surged through her. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered name bound them closer together, a magnetic force neither could resist. The garden seemed to shrink around them, the night air thick with their shared heat and desire. Lanterns flickered, petals trembled in the breeze, and the scent of jasmine wrapped around them like a silken cloak. Time ceased to exist, there was only the rhythm of bodies pressed together, the symphony of whispered names, and the intoxicating promise of what was still to come. Adrian's lips returned to hers, deep and demanding, while his hands roamed with a careful urgency, exploring, teasing, memorizing. Isabella arched into him, surrendering fully to the sensations, letting the night carry them higher, deeper into passion. "You feel incredible," he murmured, lips grazing her ear, sending shivers down her spine. "I could stay like this, forever." Her voice was a soft, needy whisper. "Then don't let go, not now, not ever." And so, beneath the moonlit canopy of the garden, they gave themselves over entirely to desire, to passion, and to each other. Every brush of skin, every whispered word, every gasp and moan became a declaration, a vow that the nights in this garden were theirs alone. A sanctuary of heat, intimacy, and longing, where nothing existed but the two of them, entwined in the intoxicating dance of pleasure and connection. The air had grown warmer, heavy with the scent of blooming flowers and the unmistakable tension that wrapped around them like a second skin. Isabella and Adrian lingered beneath the arched trellis, its vines heavy with blossoms that swayed in the gentle night breeze, brushing against their bodies as though the garden itself wanted to join their intimacy. Every touch, every glance, every whisper between them had built a fire that neither could resist, and now, it threatened to consume them completely. Adrian pulled Isabella close, his hands firm against her waist, tilting her head slightly so their lips met in a slow, deliberate kiss. The kiss deepened quickly, growing urgent, as though both had been holding back for far too long. Isabella's fingers tangled in his dark hair, pulling him closer, while her other hand traced the curve of his back, memorizing the heat of him pressed against her. "You're intoxicating," he murmured against her lips, his voice rough, low, and utterly filled with desire. "Every part of you, it's impossible to resist." Isabella's breath hitched, a soft gasp escaping her as she pressed closer. "Then don't resist," she whispered, voice thick with longing. Show me everything you've been holding back." He responded immediately, lips trailing down her jaw, her neck, teasing, igniting her nerves with every brush. Her body arched instinctively, a delicious shiver running through her as his hands roamed with careful, deliberate intent. The garden around them seemed to grow quieter, the night holding its breath as they surrendered to the rhythm of each other. Isabella's back pressed against the rough stone of the trellis, vines brushing her skin, adding a thrilling edge to their closeness. Adrian's hand slid lower, exploring the gentle curve of her hips, the softness of her waist, pulling her impossibly close. Every touch sent ripples of heat through her, each one building higher and higher until her knees threatened to buckle. "You feel incredible," he whispered against her ear, his lips grazing the sensitive spot just beneath her jaw. "I could stay like this forever, Isabella." Her response was a soft, needy sound, her body pressing fully against his. "Then stay," she murmured, almost desperately, "stay with me, don't let this night end." Adrian's hands roamed with a new urgency, memorizing every inch of her, tracing every curve, holding her close as if he could fuse them together. Their lips met again in a fiery kiss, tongues tangling, breaths mingling, a storm of desire and need that left them both gasping. The world outside the garden ceased to exist, there was only the heat between them, the soft rustle of leaves, and the intoxicating scent of blossoms that wrapped them in a cocoon of intimacy. Isabella's hands explored his chest, feeling the strength beneath her fingertips, letting herself be grounded in the physical reality of him as the emotional intensity spiraled higher. Adrian's hands mirrored hers, moving with reverent hunger, tracing her body, igniting every nerve ending with the lightest brush, yet leaving her aching for more. "You're mine," he murmured, lips brushing her temple, voice rough with desire. All of you, just for me. Her lips parted in a soft, breathless whisper. And you're mine, she replied, heart pounding, voice trembling with need. Every inch, every heartbeat, only yours. They moved together in the quiet rhythm of the night, bodies pressed tight, sighs and whispers blending into the symphony of desire that the garden had become. Every kiss, every touch, every shiver of pleasure was a promise, a silent declaration that this night these nights belonged entirely to them. The moonlight danced across their entwined forms, illuminating their flushed skin, their desperate need, their utter surrender to one another. Isabella rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, knowing that the connection between them ran deeper than mere desire. It was electric, unbreakable, and infinitely intoxicating. As they stood beneath the flowering trellis, wrapped in the heat of their embrace, both knew this night was more than passion. It was a beginning, a promise of more nights, more secret gardens, and more moments where nothing existed but their shared desire. And in that golden silver light, with the world hidden and time suspended, they surrendered completely to each other, hearts and bodies intertwined in the intoxicating magic of the garden night. The garden had grown quieter, as though even the night had paused to witness them. Lanterns sway gently, casting soft golden light on petals glistening with dew. The air was rich with the mingling scents of jasmine and roses, heavy and intoxicating, matching the lingering heat between Isabella and Adrian. Their bodies were still pressed together, hearts pounding, breaths shallow, but the intensity had shifted from fevered urgency to a deep, lingering ache of satisfaction and closeness. Adrian traced his fingers along the curve of Isabella's back, memorizing the delicate lines, the soft skin that had called to him all night. Her head rested against his chest, her hair brushing his collarbone, and he could feel the steady thrum of her heartbeat beneath his hand, mirroring his own. "You're incredible," he murmured, voice husky and low. "Every part of you, every glance, every touch, every sigh. I'll never forget tonight." Isabella lifted her head, meeting his dark, smoldering gaze. Her lips curled into a slow, satisfied smile, her eyes glowing in the moonlight. "Nor will I," she whispered, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "This, us, it's unforgettable. And I want more nights like this, more moments like this, more of you." He leaned down, capturing her lips in a slow, tender kiss, different from the fevered urgency before. This one was lingering, intimate, a promise sealed in the heat and shadow of the garden. When their lips parted, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "You'll have them," he murmured, voice full of certainty. "All the nights you want, all the moments. I'll be here. Every time." Isabella's heart swelled at his words, a mixture of desire and something deeper, a connection that went beyond mere passion. She pressed her cheek against his chest, inhaling the scent of him, feeling the warmth of his body, the strength of his embrace. "Then let's make tonight one we never forget," she whispered, a playful glint in her eyes. Adrian chuckled softly, a low, rich sound that made her shiver. "We already will," he replied, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Every whisper, every touch, every heartbeat, it's ours now." They wandered hand in hand along the winding garden paths, the night wrapping around them like a silken cloak. The world outside seemed distant and unimportant. Here, in their secret sanctuary of shadows and blooms, nothing mattered except the lingering warmth between them, the soft laughter that occasionally escaped their lips, and the intoxicating promise of shared moments still to come. Isabella stopped beneath a small archway draped with roses, their petals brushing against her arms. She turned to Adrian, lips slightly parted, eyes full of both desire and affection. "Promise me," she whispered, "promise me we'll always have nights like this, just us, the garden, and the moon." Adrian's hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing softly across her skin. "I promise," he said, voice low, unwavering. "Every garden night, every stolen moment, it's ours. Always." They kissed again, slow and lingering, letting the world fade completely. The breeze played with her hair, the petals swayed gently around them, and the soft trickle of a nearby fountain was the only sound accompanying their shared warmth. It was a kiss that carried the memory of everything they had experienced that night: the urgency, the passion, the tenderness, the unspoken vows. Finally, they parted slightly, foreheads resting together, breathing in sync, hearts still racing, but with a calm satisfaction settling in their bones. The garden had witnessed their surrender, their connection, their love wrapped in desire, and it seemed to glow with a quiet approval. "Thank you," Isabella whispered, voice soft, almost reverent. "For tonight. For everything." Adrian smiled, brushing his lips against her temple. "No, thank you," he replied. "For being you. For letting me in. For making this unforgettable." They lingered there, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the moon trace silver lines across the garden. Every shadow, every bloom, every breath of night air seemed alive with the memory of their passion, their intimacy, and their shared promise. And as the hours stretched on, they knew that this night in the garden would never truly end. It would live in every stolen glance, every tender touch, and every heartbeat that would always belong to the other. Beneath the moonlit sky, amidst the flowers and the whispering leaves, Isabella and Adrian finally let themselves drift into a serene quiet, hearts still intertwined, bodies still warm, knowing that their nights in the garden had only just begun.